Hello and welcome to TAP. Today we'll do a brief introduction of the TAP ecosystem. The TAP ecosystem is comprised of the TAP wallet, the TAP Invest platform, and the TAP registry. Let's start by looking at the TAP Invest platform. The TAP Invest platform was developed as an easy to use interface where you can connect your different brokerage and exchange accounts, and you can have a holistic view of your portfolio. As you can see here, we've worked on integrating a pretty large array of different exchanges and brokerage accounts. Now, one of the things that we wanted to simplify in this process is the ability to connect these accounts without having to use API keys. For those of you that have used API keys in the past, you know that it's a tedious process. So we've integrated OAuth authentication. And what does that mean? That means that some of these brokerages and exchanges you can simply connect by typing in your username and password to that exchange, and then accepting with the exchange that you want to connect it to the TAP Invest platform. If those accounts have two-factor authentication, you would have to obviously go through and provide the two-factor authentication for it. As you can see in this example, I have three different exchanges or brokerages connected. The first one is Tasty's Trade, and Tasty Trade offers different stocks. So if I had multiple accounts, you would see each one of my accounts listed, and below you would see all of the assets within those accounts. Same with Coinbase, where you might have digital assets or possibly real world assets. And then with Robinhood as well, where you have access to quite a few different types of asset classes. As you can see, the sell button is next to certain assets that you have. And to the left on my watch, or I'm sorry, to the right on my watch list, you have the buy button next to different assets that I'm watching. So we wanted to make the user interface very easy for our customers to be able to use. Now, one of the important parts of investing is knowing where to start and how much money to invest. And for that, we built an AI analyzer that is our own machine learning model that we developed in-house. It does not run on an LLM or OpenAI API, but it's fully built in-house. And we've actually hired students from Harvard to work on the platform and actually go through and give their approval on our analyzer, which is really important. Now, when I click on Analyzer, in this case, I've already ran it. So the first thing it does is it runs me through my different results of the last time I ran the analyzer, which shows me how much money I should be investing, how much cash reserve I have, additional cash reserve based on certain questions that I may have answered, and then the recommended amount to save. It'll also build me a custom portfolio. In this case, I asked for two portfolios, a hybrid, which is comprised of stocks and digital stocks, individual stocks and strategies. So if we take a look at this hybrid one, you can see we have an allocation that divides up based on the risk tolerance that I provided. And then we also have the TAP strategies. So it's a hybrid portfolio because it has our custom-made strategies and it has digital assets that might be recommended to the end user. So let's run through an analyzer so you can see what it's like. So I'm going to click Rerun Analyzer. As soon as I do that, one of the first questions it asks is, what is my primary financial goal? We all are at different stages in life and we have different financial goals. Some of us might be saving for retirement. Some of us might be saving to buy a home, for an education for one of our children, or just to build an emergency fund or general savings and investment. So in this case, let's go with retirement. One of the next questions it'll ask is, what is your annual income? Since I've already ran the analyzer, these values are already here for me, so I don't have to retype them in. So I'll hit continue. What are your monthly expenses? We'll hit continue again. And then what is your estimated net worth? Estimated net worth is basically everything you own, all of your assets, minus what you owe, all of your liabilities. And the delta between that is your net worth. So in this case, we'll hit continue. What's really important in knowing what asset classes to recommend to users is knowing their experience they have in investing. For example, users that don't have a lot of experience, options is something that wouldn't be provided to them. The more experience you have, the different types of investment options we're able to offer the users. So in this case, let's go with moderate experience. A very important next step in knowing the best for your goals is knowing how soon you're going to need the funds you're investing. Depending on what your goal is, you might need the funds sooner than somebody else. In this case, we'll say more than 10 years. Now, it's very important to know what the user's risk tolerance is. Some of us have a high risk tolerance, and others of us have a very low risk tolerance, and some of us have a medium risk tolerance. And based on the risk tolerance, it'll know exactly how to divvy up the different asset classes that it's recommending to us and exactly what assets to recommend to us. So in this case, I'll go with a high risk tolerance. High risk tolerance will give me a lot more digital assets and real world assets and things that might be a lot more volatile, such as international stocks. Now, we also want to find out, we want to verify that what you said is potentially right. So we'll ask you a follow-up question in different wording. If your investments were to lose 10% of their value in a short period of time, how would you react? Would you buy more investments at the lower price? Would you hold on to the investments and not make any changes? Would you sell some, or would you sell all of your investments immediately? In this case, let's say that we would buy more investments at the lower price because I said high risk tolerance, and I'm verifying that. Now, as we go to analyze how much money you should be saving and additional savings and things of that nature, it's important to know your marital status. In this case, I'll say that I'm single. Your employment status, so I'll say I'm employed. How many dependents you have? I'll say I have one dependent. And the dependents are important to help build your savings and how much money you should have in your savings. What is your current lifestyle goals? For example, and I'm going to use a diet as an example. I've been on a very strict diet for about a year now. And it's very painful to be on a strict diet. And in the same way, if the platform makes it very strict for you, where you live a very frugal life, you might not like it. So we want to give the user the opportunity to have that lifestyle balance that they may want. Financial freedom means more money to be able to have to spend each month, and saving for the future means you'll have less money available and more going into investments and savings. If you go balanced, then you'll take an approach where you're splitting the amount of money that's set to be saved and how much is set to be invested. In this case, I'm going to say I want to save for the future. Now, some of us may have a steady income and others of us might have a variable income. We might be self-employed, we might be commission-based. This is very important as the analyzer goes and sets up how we should be saving and investing. So in this case, I'll say I have a steady income. The analyzer also wants to know if there's any major purchases that we might have coming up so that it knows how much to allocate for those. So I'll say no in this case. And then what are your savings preferences? Do you prefer to have more money invested or more money in your liquid account? If you prefer to have more money available in your liquid account, then tell it you're comfortable with, or you have more peace of mind with a larger savings. If you're comfortable having more money invested, then tell it you're comfortable with a smaller savings. Now, as we look at the portfolio, you're able to have two different types of portfolios. The hybrid portfolio is where we have individual assets that we recommend to you that you can invest in, and you can choose whether you want them or not. And then we also have our tap developed strategies as part of that portfolio. The second option we have is only tap strategies. So some of us might not want to look at companies, might not want to research. We just want to have one tap strategies that we can buy into, and it buys a variety of different assets, and it could be across different asset classes as well. So in this case, we'll click both and we'll look at what both does. The analyzer is going to take all the data we provided. It's going to run it through the machine learning model, and it'll come back with two different portfolios for us. And it'll come back with how much money we should be investing. So in this case, it says we should be investing $3,000 a month. I put a low savings, so my cash reserve is low. But it also recommends for emergency funds, because I do have a dependence, that I have an additional buffer, right? It'll give you the income, your expenses, your cash flow, and then how much money to save. Had I said I want to save more or I want a bigger cushion, that number would be higher and the amount to invest would be lower. Now, as you can see here, it has different assets that it's recommending to me across the different asset classes, and it divides the different asset classes based on my risk tolerance. In this case, we're doing only assets and digital assets because and real world assets and no stock strategies because I was a high risk. Had I been a medium risk, then you'll have more in different of the stock strategies. Now we do have all those areas covered here in the individual stocks and the assets that it's recommending to us. And then as you can see, there's also metrics that tell you your expense to income ratio and your cash flow to net worth ratios. Now, since we did ask it to build us two separate strategies, I'll click on two separate portfolios. I'm sorry, I'll click on strategies only. And as you can see here now, if I wanted to buy only strategies, it has all the different strategies that it recommends to me. And we'll dive into what those strategies look like in a moment. One thing that we said is that we would buy more stocks at a lower price. So it does have a cash reserve for us in our accounts so that we can buy in at that lower price. And based on what your goals are, it will leave different types of reserves for you. So now let's take a second and let's dive into stocks. Here on stocks, we'll go into strategies. And as you can see here, we have developed, in this right now, we have 6 different strategies you can look at. And you can see at the return that basically the back testing shows that the strategies have done over a 2-year period. So if I click on research, in the research tab, I'll have all the information about the strategy. I'll be able to see all of the assets that it's comprised of, and then the allocations of each one of those strategies. If it's a strategy I want to buy into, I can click buy now. It'll show me the different exchanges that I can use that might or might not be connected. I can select that exchange and I can buy into that strategy. In the same fashion, we can look at stocks, individual assets. Now, right now, individual assets are not available in the platform, but it's something that will be available in the very near future. You can look at the individual assets, you can do research on it, you can see information about the company, you can look at the latest news related to the company, and then there's a community feature of verified users you can also look at, as well as access to historical data. So let's jump into digital assets. As we talked about, the platform not only does stocks, but it also supports digital assets. And here you can see different strategies that I might have. So if I click on my tab holdings, you can see different strategies that I'm invested into. And when I actually buy into a strategy, it buys all of these different assets within that exchange with the available cash I have. So let's take a quick look here at strategies. And as we saw earlier, you can see the different strategies we have. Here's their performance. If I click on the research tab, again, we'll be able to get all the information about the different strategy. And same simple process. If we wanted to buy something, we click buy now. In this case, we have Coinbase connected. I'll hit next. It'll ask me what account I want to use. So my available balance is $83.39, what's available in cash. Unfortunately, this particular asset has a minimum of $600. So I would have to add more money to the account to be able to buy into this particular strategy, which is very simple to do. But some of the strategies do have minimums. Actually, they all have minimums. And in the same manner, you have news, you have your dashboard, and then we have real world assets. And in that, there's different strategies for real world assets that, for example, you have gold plus BTC. If we look at that, we have BTC and gold. And again, one tap and you can buy into this strategy. As I mentioned, we are adding predictive markets into the platform. And under predictive markets right now, this is read-only. The read-only predictive markets are tied into CalChi for now. And we will very soon be able to have the ability to be able to actually transact with the different predictive markets. As you may have seen, predictive markets are something that are getting a lot of traction. And it's another form of investment nowadays, is how it's looked at in the market. So again, this is something that should be active here in the near future. The next thing that we'll take a quick look at is the TAP registry. The tap registry can handle all manner of assets, from jewelry to artwork to collectibles. We do have some customers on that have items that get registered on a daily basis. For example, one of our customers, Pompeii, a jewelry company, every time one of their customers decides to buy a piece of jewelry and they want to add a digital registration for it, they're able to do that. And as you can see, what that ends up doing is it registers it on the blockchain, adds it to the tap registry, and then the user gets a credential on their wallet that is a certificate of registration that shows all of the financial information about that transaction. In the future, should they decide to transact with that, as our name implies, transact, authenticate, and pay, they'll be able to, at very in the near future, market for sale and be able to sell that with wallet-to-wallet commerce on our platform through our digital wallet. If we go back to the registry, one of the new things that we've implemented, if we go to bicycles, for example, is the ability to mark items as stolen. Now, if an item's stolen, the last thing we want is an invasion of privacy. So what we did is if an item is marked stolen, then the user is able to add information about the police report so that if the item is ever found, or if somebody's looking to buy the item and they go to the registry and they find that the item's reported stolen, they can see the police department that it got reported to, the case number, the officer. And then what this does is it enables them to say, hey, I found this item, or this item's for sale on this particular platform. And then the owner of the item is able to potentially recover their item and not expose their sensitive data, or not get bombarded by users that might be trying to take advantage of a platform to spam owners of different assets. So when we looked at how to do this, we thought about the different aspects to ensure user privacy and also at the same time create the ability for users to still be able to recover their items. Now, as I mentioned, when you register an item, you will get a certificate of registration in your wallet. And I'll connect to the wallet momentarily, and I'll demonstrate that to you guys. And within that, you're able to, when you connect your wallet to the platform, you'll be able to do different transactions, such as mark an item as stolen, mark it for sale, or mark it as found if it was stolen and you do find the item, which is very helpful. Let me switch over to the wallet real quick. Let me end this sharing. Okay, so now I'm sharing my phone screen, and from my phone screen, you can see my wallet. Some of the enhancements that we've added to the wallet is now it has the ability to not only do ERC20 or Ethereum-based currencies, but also Solana and BTC. I know BTC was something that was asked for a long time, and that is now part of the platform. So now if I click on Tap COR for Certificate of Registry, you can see I have different items here. And here's that e-scooter. Something that's really important is if we ever find ourselves in the situation where we have to report something stolen, law enforcement requires information, such as where it was purchased, date of purchase, who you purchased it from, if you have a receipt for that item, the price you paid, as well as if you go to sell an item. This information is very helpful to be able to give to the new buyer. So if I click on receipt, for example, I can see exactly the receipt that was, how much was paid for this item. And all of this you can pass on to the new buyer when you have a transaction with them in the wallet-to-wallet commerce. As you can see, this works for all manner of items. And if you do decide to sell an item, it's very simple to simply click send. You can type in the person's wallet address, you can input the ENS name, or you can bring up the camera and scan the barcode on their wallet and be able to send it to the user that way. You can also receive the funds for payment that way, or however you would like to receive payment from the users. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to our platform. We will be providing additional videos and the educational material as the platform goes live.